Hello there, and welcome back to the Codex. So per usual, I've been doing every single weekly and daily challenge in the current Nightwave to get access to the new augments as quickly as possible for you, and I have gotten now the first augment, which is pain points for the Athodai. This says on weak point hits with primary fire, plus 60% weak point damage for 5 seconds, stacks up to 10x. So this is supposed to be, according to what it says, up to 600% weak point damage. So the question was, is this actually 600%, which would mean that it's doing 6 times the normal weak point multiplier of 3 and adding an additional 18x to our weak point multiplier, or is it working like Acuity, and when they say 600%, they actually mean a flat plus 6x, just like how Acuity, when it says 350% weak point damage, it actually means plus 3.5x. Let's go ahead and test with that. Spoilers, I already know, but we're going to go through the process together, and I'll show you step by step. Now let's look at the regular shots here. Actually, first let me see if I actually have the mod on. I did not. Good. So right now we're on a blank build. So we're going to shoot these guys. So on headshots, you can see that our weak point damage is, on a critical, it is 137. So if normal weak point damage is 3x, and that's doubled on crits, although we're going to be critting in both cases, so we can ignore the double on crits. Both sides of the equation are doubled, so it's equalized. So if it adds plus 6x, which is what it does, by the way, it does not add 600% of 3. That would be insane. It's supposed to add a flat plus 6x. So this 137 should get tripled by putting pain points on. So let's go ahead and go put on pain points and see what actually happens. Also, just to make those crits more reliable, let's put on creeping bullseye, because those are the numbers we're looking at, is the crits. So we're comparing it to 137. So if it's tripled, then it would go from 137 to about 411. What we actually see, once we get it stacked up all the way, because we gotta get 10 hits, what we actually see, ignore the heat there, is that we're hitting 546. The first guy was different because I put a heat proc on him, so ignore that. So 546, that's not 411. That's not 3 times. Do you know what that actually is? That's 4 times damage, because guess what? The pain points augment for the Athodai has the exact same bug as the primary and secondary Acuity mods, which is they are 1.5 times stronger than they're supposed to be. So for those of you that don't know here, both primary and pistol Acuity, when they say 350% weak point damage, they're supposed to add plus 3.5x to your weak point multiplier. So they're supposed to take you from 3 to 6.5x. Well, how they actually work is that they're accidentally multiplied first by 1.5, making this actually be 5.25x. So it actually takes you up to 8.25x. They somehow made the same mistake on pain points, and instead of adding 6x, it's 6x times 1.5, actually adding plus 9x. This takes your weak point multiplier from 3x to 12x, which means that this mod, on headshots, on weak point hits, quadruples your damage. Whatever damage number you're hitting is multiplied straight up by 4 on weak point hits just by having this on. So this causes some interesting considerations for the build here. So you would first see this mod and probably think, okay, what if we go all in on a weak point damage build and we go full weak point multiplication Acuity setup? So now we use pistol Acuity along with pain points, and this is the rest of the build that I've decided on here. We're using crosshairs for our crit chance. Paired with Acuity, this gives us close to 250% crit chance when these are both stacked up all the way. We're using Merciless Gunfight for some more crit damage and also making it mildly AoE thanks to Punch Through. And then we're using a Corrosive Heat setup with Convulsion, Pestilence, and Prime T to charge, so lots of raw elemental damage, and of course pain points, giving us that, what is supposed to be 6x, but it's actually 9x weak point damage. So the math on this, just to be clear, is these are additive with each other, because neither of these are actually 8%, they're both adding a flat amount, they are additive with each other, so you could view these as having diminishing returns. So if we start off with a regular 3x multiplier, putting on pain points takes us from 3x plus 9x up to 12x. Acuity is an additional 5.25x on top of that, so that takes us from 12x to, 17.25x, and then Deadhead is multiplicative with both of these, because this is an actual 30% increase. So both of these, or either of these, if you're only using 1 times 1.3, takes us up to about 22.5x damage on weak point hits, which critical hits do double weak point damage. So that's about 45x weak point critical damage. So this build, when you land a crit headshot, you're doing about 45 times the damage of a body shot with this setup. So let's go ahead and test that out. And take a look at the math here. Now again, the first kill is going to be quite slow because we got to get stacked up here. We got to start getting our deadhead stacks and build up those pain point stacks and all that. So first kill speed, ignore that. The first 3 kills are stacking up our deadhead. So now we're at the full kill speed. You can see we are hitting as high as red crits. So pretty good damage. The damage is fine. We have no multi-shot, so we're not proccing a lot of status. Also because the Athodai only has 8% stats in the first place. So this is basically a pure raw damage build. The kill time is really not bad considering I don't have any Warframe buffs going on. I'm not even using Tenacious Bond. I'm not using Reinforced Bond. So we're not getting any of those extra little bits of crit damage and fire rate right now. So here's the problem with this version of the build. Like I said, Pain Points and Pistol Acuity are both multiplicative with each other. So especially since Pain Points is also bugged, and this is already giving you plus 9x multiplier, putting it to 12x. Adding an additional 5.25x on top of that isn't, well, ignoring the critical chance increase portion of that, which is also a DPS increase, obviously. In terms of just the weak point increase, this isn't even adding another 6x, so this isn't even a 50% increase to weak point damage. So this means that multi-shot should actually, in my testing, does actually pull ahead. So using a multi-shot setup with pain points instead of a full Acuity setup is better. Now, since we're not using Acuity, our weak point multiplication is only going to be about 31x on a crit instead of 45x per shot. So we went from 45 down to 31 multiplication, but we're not only firing 1 shot anymore. We're now doing an average of 3.3 shots if you're just using Galvanized Diffusion. So that's only 31, but times an average of 3.3 shots is now an average critical weak point multiplier per trigger pool of 102x. So again, ignoring the crit chance increase, which does not make up for that difference, by the way, is more than double the weak point damage. And that's without Lethal Torrent. If you also added on Lethal Torrent, which now gives you an average multi-shot of 3.9, along with the fire rate increase, which is a DPS increase, obviously, that takes it up to 3.9 times 31 equals 121x. So now we're up to 121x multiplier versus 45. So that is almost 3 times as high. So that is significantly higher weak point damage in total per trigger pool, not per shot, per trigger pool, so a lot more damage. So let's go ahead and compare this. And again, of course, the first few kills are going to be a bit lower. It is just hilarious, by the way, that this mod is somehow has the same bug as the Acuity mods of being 50% stronger than it's supposed to be. Just absolutely hysterical. And as you can see, this kill speed, even though we're not red critting even anymore, this kill speed is noticeably faster, in my opinion. And you do have the benefit of, even though it's a low status weapon, you will be applying more status on top of that, which is a minor DPS increase, thanks to having multiple shots going out and not just one at a time, basically. Now let's go ahead and compare that with using a companion setup that is giving us both Tenacious Bond and Reinforced Bond for the extra 1.2x crit multiplier and the 60% fire rate. So my Nautilus is only going to do that. It's not going to attack or anything. So we're just benefiting from, like I said, this 60% fire rate and 1.2x Tenacious Bond crit multiplier. We're still on the multi-shot version of the build here, so let's compare. And then we will, to be fair, go back to Acuity and compare that again. Why are they attacking me? This is scary. Let's resummon those guys. Here we go. Again, got to get my first few kills here. It's always the slowest. And as you can see, it's now even better with the Tenacious bonus and the Reinforced Bond bonus. The extra fire rate definitely feels nice. Let's go back to the Acuity version of the build. We got to be fair, of course, if we're going to test it. If we're going to test the Nautilus buffs with one, not Nautilus, the Bond mods with one, we got to test them with both, of course. So let's get more guys back here. Get 20. I don't know why there was less guys there. All right, here we go. Just need 3 kills to get going here. And yes, you can see it's definitely better, but the multi-shot build still seems to, even if just a little bit, still seems to win out in terms of time to kill. And again, this is with no Warframe buffs. Now, there is some considerations for some minor tweaks you can make to the build. On the Acuity version here, I'm using Merciless Gunfight. You could argue on the multi-shot version, if you don't feel like you need the full multi-shot and fire rate from Lethal Torrent, especially because the weapon itself gives you a free 100% fire rate, and especially if you're getting an extra 60% from Reinforced Bond, you could drop Lethal Torrent to get Merciless Gunfight back on the multi-shot version of the build to benefit from that punch through to make it less of a purely single target weapon. If you happen to have enemies lined up and you can hit multiple heads at the same time, that will of course increase your crowd-based KPM, which is very ideal. There's also some Warframe synergies you could do with this weapon to, you know, bring it to the next level. One of the main ones that I thought of is one that I've mentioned before, like in the Daiku video, for example. If you were to throw on Lavos with Valence Formation to add, for example, grouping with a Entangle build like this, and use Valence Formation to add Force Blast procs to the weapon, all of a sudden you can turn this into an absolute crowd murdering weapon with those insanely high damage blast procs that you're going to do, thanks to the weak point multiplier applying to the blast proc calculation. Let's go ahead and showcase that. Let's activate cold and heat. Do this. And yeah, we gotta get the first few kills here. And you can see once we have all of our multipliers going, it just absolutely, you instantly shred the entire crowd. Now that our Athodai stacked up, take a look at this. One moment. Yeah, just evaporate the entire crowd. So there is ways, as always, to make these super, super strong single target weapons turn into, all of a sudden, crowd murdering damage potential. And of course, this would make the Acuity version a lot better as well. Both versions are fine. I just think technically it seems that the DPS of the multi-shot version is higher, because we are in a unique scenario with the Athodai, where thanks to pain points not being an Acuity mod, but giving you multi-shot, you can benefit from both multi-shot and a lot of weak point multiplier increase. So yeah, that's my opinion on this weapon, guys. It definitely does a lot of headshot damage. This might be interesting to use in something like a Disruption, for example. You could probably switch things around and prime a Demolist with your primary, and then whip out this Athodai and do like a multi-million damage headshot, and honestly take it to like level cap Disruptions or maybe Void Cascades. We might have a new interesting weapon to play around with here in scenarios like that. So let me know down below, what do you guys think? Is it as hilarious to you as it is to me that Pain Points has the same bug as Acuity somehow, and is 50% stronger than it's supposed to be? I don't know, I find it hysterical. Anyways, hopefully you guys found the information useful. I tried to get this tested quickly for you to get the information out, and I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy the video and want to support the channel? The best way you can do so is to like, comment, and share the video along with subscribing to the channel if you think I've earned it. And if you want to catch me live on Twitch, my schedule is posted on the screen right now, so feel free to drop by and ask questions. As always, thank you to all of my YouTube members, Twitch subscribers, and Patreon supporters.